here, Supply Network Dynamics, Chapter 7, Part 6, the case analysis. We now take a step back from what actually happened and look at some feedback loops that actually drove performance. What actually did happen? Well, one of the first things that you can see looking back is that this project was chronically understaffed. There were 3 distinct periods in this, well, perhaps 4. The first period was in the beginning. They were understaffed because they didn't start with the right number of people from the beginning. And it took time to refine good people. They wanted the best people there. And when they had found them, then it took time to train them and bring them on board. And every week that's just a small number. But if you accumulate the area under, the red area under here, that's actually a significant delay. The second period was, well, how silly can it get? It was the Christmas period. So the planning was that everybody would continue to work there, but well, people don't. They have a life, they have families, and they want to get back to those. And so the second big dip was actually this holiday period. And the third period was much more up here, and that's budget constraints. So that means that the budget was around this time effectively frozen or even shrunk. We went to a new budget year. We'll return to that later on, but it actually meant that there was not enough budget to meet everything. And then there's a little blip here, but it's already after the project is, well, more or less brain dead. And this was the first problem, in fact the fundamental problem. They just didn't have enough money, didn't have enough people, partly caused by not enough money, but also by staffing delays to do all the work. And what did they do in response? They had a quick fix. And the quick fix was the schedule slippage loop. So the understaffing problem was difficult, but what they basically did is said, you know what? Let's make the schedule a bit later. We should finish in week X, but we can finish in week X plus 2, week X plus 3. And that's a quick fix that can easily be used. So if there are schedule problems, then you make the gate slip a little bit. As a result, the stage lasts a bit longer. As a result, the performance isn't so horrible, and so the gap is less. So you don't have to have many schedule problems. So in the long run, this loop is a very good balancing loop. If you have schedule problems, you lower your goal, as a result of which you are not so far off from your goal. Sounds great, longer run isn't. This is a decision trap. So what actually happened is, you can see that here. This is the original duration, and you see how it's climbing and climbing and climbing for gate 1. The original, gate 2 also in the planning was climbing and climbing. As a result, gate 3 even more. And in the end, that killed the project. So from week to week, if you look back, and this is a perspective that the people in the project could have, but often didn't have, you could see how the whole project was being delayed with little small steps, a bit like the temperature that is being raised with little steps for the frog in the YouTube clip. Another way to visualize this is like this. So the top line is the original planning. The second line is the planning, performance up to stage 1, and you see that stage 1 has lasted much longer. And the idea is then in the planning, you know what, we'll do stage 2 in much less time, and certainly stage 3 in far less time. We can do this. So yes, we're late now, but we will be much less late later on. You may remind yourself of the Kahneman and Tversky planning fallacy, also decision trap almost of chapter 3. So being very optimistic about the future, and it got worse because then stage 2 lasts much longer, and then stage 3 is assumed to be done in half the time that it originally was assumed to be done, with quite some more work on top of it. And that simply didn't work. And the final loop is that by the stretching of these stages, things that were supposed to be finished in 2007 now needed to be done in 2008. But there was no budget for this project in 2008. And so there was simply no money to do the work. There was money in 2007, but when that wasn't used, through the budget reasons, it was gone. And 2008 didn't have resources for it. And on top of that, by all this stretching of gates, intermediate gates, the overall project duration was simply consumed. There was no slack anymore on the project. They had 11 weeks in the beginning, and they didn't have any weeks left at the end. And that led to the explosion of the project. So we can combine this now, the original loops of the staffing adjustment loop, where you actually hire more people, but it takes too long, and the schedule slippage loop, where you actually say, you know what, let's do it a bit later, with another loop saying that actually if the stage lasts longer, then it needs to be hired in the next year, but there is no budget available in next year, so that will limit staff hiring. And a final one that if the gate slips, then actually the slack in the overall project plan is diminished, and so we don't have any slack left. And this little perception delay here will be the topic of our next mini webinar, because why on earth did they not see that?